The Cincinnati Reds are in need of guys that can get on base, but Jeff Carr thinks Gavin Lux doesn't deserve to be here. I'm going to tell you why Gavin Lux is a member of the Reds in 2026 on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. My name is Jeff, his name is Steve, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We've been podcasting about this team for a combined 14 seasons, and we're glad that you're alongside us here today. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, and we thank you for making that happen. On today's show, a little bit later on, we are going to talk about a question that we have after the fallout from Wednesday night's Red Hot Stove League interview that Nick Krall gave on WLW and decide whether or not we feel as though the trust level has been damaged. In a few minutes, we will look at some favorable projections for both Elly Cruz and Matt McLain from, yet again, from FanGraphs. I'm going to keep calling them the site that doesn't give favorable projections to the Reds, but they're kind of interesting to look at least this early on in the offseason. We will begin, however, though, with today, the non-tender deadline, and could the Reds be making any moves to free up some money on the books? Gavin Lux is my first question on that one, and we will answer it on today's episode that is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Steve, so here's my argument with this, because Gavin Lux had a good on-base season last year. He got on base at a 350 clip. Yes. His slugging percentage, 374. Ugh. His batting average, 260-something. His outs above average, -9. Ugh. What does he do other than get on base? Because if he gets on base at an elite clip, he should be batting in the top half of the lineup. But he does nothing else that makes me excited that the Reds are about to pay him $4 or $5 million.
I think he'll come in closer to 3.6. And this team needs guys that get on. Look, Jeff, this is the same argument we had last offseason about Santiago Espinal. I was right then, and I'm right now. This is a player that's not your number one. This is not your
right
number
in
one.
The fact that he was here, or you were right in the fact that he was valuable?
At the time that they signed him, at the time that they brought him back, they needed him. They needed him to be a guy down near the end of the bench to be available to fill in and play different positions. Same with Gavin Lux. This is a guy you stick down at the end of your bench that's going to get on base when you have to put him in the lineup. He's not your number one guy on the bench. He's not the go-to dude, but for $3.6 million, he gives you multiple positions. When you have to let him bat, he's going to get on base. You don't just let that guy walk away. You don't non-tender that guy. The Reds need him. That position's going to be filled by somebody. There's nobody in Louisville right now that I'm like, stick that guy at the end of the bench and let him be the dude. So this is what you do. And this is the same arguments we had about Santiago Espinal. If you've got a better option, I'll entertain it. If you got a better option at a more affordable price, cool. They're not going to have either of those things. So Gavin Lux is going to get a contract offer. I just don't see any other scenario where he doesn't, Jeff. And you look at his numbers and you talk about the fact that, he was, his outs above average was terrible. Cool. He's not a great defender. His WAR was -0.2. I don't think he was used correctly all the time. There was some suspect usage of Gavin Lux at times last season. But after saying all of that, he was just a tick below a league average player. League average at $3 million in today's baseball, that's a good deal.
I don't hate it, but I also I wonder a little bit about this. Can you keep him knowing that $5 million could be spent somewhere else? And I'm going to do the thing, because I'm with you. If it happens that they get him for 3.6, I think I like this a little bit more, but I'm seeing projections of $4 and $5 million for next year. And I don't know why there's $400,000 that really determines whether or not I like the deal, but for some reason, $4 or $5 million just doesn't set well with me. And especially when you consider, and I was trying to look up any updates that we've heard about this, it's not as if he's a guy that's going to get around the clock observation, but the Tyler Callihan of it all could really make this interesting, because Tyler Callihan plays all the positions that Gavin Lux does, and he does it for $820,000. And I think that when you're a team that penny pinches as much as the Reds do, it's hard for me to say that you can pay $5 million for the guy at the end of your bench that provides for you one thing, and that's that he can get on base really well. And I also feel like that guy, the profile of that type of a player, has to play a bigger quantity of innings and get a bigger quantity of at-bats to be of more use. Because if he's coming in to pinch hit and get a pinch hit walk, I mean, I guess that moves the moves the lineup along, keeps the conveyor belt rolling. But if that is what we're hoping for here, then why are we paying $5 million for that? And I don't love the glove. I just don't. And I understand.
I know you don't, but let me ask you this. He was 97 OPS plus for Gavin Lux in 2025. If the Reds gave, and you keep saying 5, it's going to be 3.6. He's not going to get $5 million.
I hope you're right.
But let me ask you this. If the Reds got a guy for the end of the bench that made $3.6 to $4 million and gave you an OPS plus of, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 110 to 115. As your end of the bench guy. That's Gavin. That's Gavin Lux.
He's not Gavin.
110? That's Gavin Lux, sir. Because I just told you that the Reds didn't use him smartly.
Never had one.
His splits in 2025 against right-handed pitching, his OPS plus was 112 last season.
In 421 at bats in 2022, he did have a 109 OPS plus. So he's at least done it. It's not
and in 390 at bats against right-handed pitchers in 2025, his OPS plus, according to Baseball Reference, was 112. That's the guy he is against right-handed pitching. This is a no-brainer, Jeff. Who else are they going to get? And we're going to talk about the Nick Krall trust factor here coming up in a few minutes. I don't trust Nick Krall to go get anybody better than that at a better price. You sign Gavin Lux.
To free up the money,
You keep Gavin Lux.
I have a hard time thinking, though, like in this and even expanding it to all of the other guys. And there's definitely plenty of guys that, are no brainers that are getting contracts. Like Brady Singer's getting a contract. Nick Lodolo's getting a contract. Spencer Steer, TJ Friedel, Matt McLain, Tyler Stevenson. You're not non-tendering any of these guys, but I have a hard time thinking that they're just going to bring all these guys back. And then they're also going to make moves that are, meaningful to add to this team. I feel like they're going to bring these guys back, go sign Miguel Andujar and bring him back and call it a day. And so I look at this and I'm like, where can they free something up? I feel like Gavin Lux is that guy. I feel like as much as there were times this past year where the on-base factor in his gritty at-bats and the things that he does at the plate were at least a little bit intriguing to me, but knowing full well he is the king of the good piece of hitting club. But the good piece of hitting club, Steve, is standing down there, headbutting Colin Cowgill 9.95 times out of 10. And this Reds team has far too many of those guys. Far too many. Let's get a single and build a rally.
That's a different argument. That's the bopper that we've been asking them to go get. That has nothing to do with a utility guy at the end of your bench. And in today's baseball, $3 million is peanuts. I mean, it's cabbage to Bob. I understand. I get it. But in today's baseball, the league minimum is what? $820,000 is like the minimum you're gonna pay. So this is nothing. Gavin Lux is on this team.
It's interesting. I think that the Reds are due to make a couple of moves today as far as non-tendering some folks. I think I can predict that Sam Moll will be non-tender. They might try to bring him back on a lesser deal. They might try to bring back Will Benson on a lesser deal, but I don't know about that one either because, like we said, they hate making moves for outfielders. And if they have an outfielder, why would they get rid of an outfielder? But those moves are just not going to free up as much money as if they were to non-tender Gavin Lux. But I think I'd be on board with a 3.5 if that's what we're looking at. Anyway, it's hard when we have to penny pinch for the penny pinching team.
There you go. All right, let's move on to something more fun than penny pinching for Gavin Lux, Jeff, because FanGraphs, the site that loves to hate the Cincinnati Reds, has two very interesting projections about guys that should be battling for the shortstop position in 2026. We'll talk about that coming up next. The NFL season is in full swing, and honestly, there is nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans, cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a real hassle. Between the queues and the login screens and the prices jumping at checkout, it's very, very frustrating. That's where Game Time comes in. If you want to go check out the Bengals against the New England Patriots, you can do that for under $65 right now on Game Time. And if you'd like to see some legit college football, if you'd like to see a future NFL quarterback in Julian Sayin, drive up to Columbus, get your tickets for the Buckeyes taking on Rutgers. You can get in there for under $40 right now on Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase on those already greatly discounted prices. Again, terms do apply. Use that promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. OH, baby. OH. Make sure you're subscribed. That way you don't miss any of the great content we've got coming your way in this offseason. We're going to be with you as each and every day, gathering up all of the information floating around out there, following the rumors, keeping you informed about what's going on with your Cincinnati Reds all the way through to spring training. We're here for you. Click subscribe so you don't miss any of it. All right, Jeff. I threw you a little curveball there with the tease at the end. I saw your face react to the guys that should be battling for shortstop. We're going to be talking about Elly Cruz and Matt McLain because FanGraphs has interesting projections for both of them. Basically, the short version of the story, and you're going to unpack these numbers for us, but the short version of the story is they're predicting an all-star to MVP level season for Elly Cruz, and they're predicting a above average starter to all-star season for Matt McLain. And I feel like those two things absolutely have to happen for this team to have a chance in 2026.
Yeah, because like we said last year, and it's probably going to be the exact same this year, they are going to be building their lineup around Elly Cruz. And I low-key think that they were building their lineup around Matt McLain as well. It's just Matt McLain fell so hard last year that they had to find somebody else. But the interesting part about this, Steve, is that the Zips projection system that is used on FanGraphs, and it's kind of ran by Dan Szymborski. He
was a really smart baseball guy. If you don't know, if you guys don't know Dan's work, go check him out. Dan knows ball.
Love his writing. Love his writing about baseball, and he really has a level-headed approach to analyzing the game. Uses a lot of analytics, but is able to at least digest it down to folks that are like, analytics, but he does a good job of that. And when it's looking at guys, a lot of it has to do with the floor. I went too hard on that impression.
Oh man.
You're
gonna get a text from Branch. He's gonna be very offended.
But it really projects more of the guy's floor than his ceiling, because a projection system does not focus on what is the top end of the performance. So saying all of that, saying this, they have Elly Cruz at 4.6 WAR for next year, and they have Matt McLain at 3.1, a 3-win player. I think that would surprise a lot of folks that have already decided that they're going to write him off. But the big thing with Elly, because you mentioned this, the big thing with Elly is Dan Szymborski says not once, but twice, he is an unquestioned, undoubted, no reason to even consider the alternative shortstop.
Oh, that's a hard pill for me to swallow. A couple of things. In Dan's defense, Dan's a smart guy and follows baseball. This is not one of those national writers that wings it and puts some stuff out there. And you can basically be like, tell me the guys never watched the Reds without telling me the guys never watched the Reds. That's not Dan. So I think, Dan knows what Nick Krall is saying. Dan knows that Nick Krall has already looked in a camera and been like, no, I'm not moving him. So Dan has a little cover to double down on this. Here's the deal. Somewhere along the way, Elly Cruz is going to move off of this position. And I just, for the life of me, can't fathom why the Reds have their feet dug in so hard on it not being right now. When you could put a 4.6 or better player in center field right now today, and then you could put a 3 WAR player or better to replace him at shortstop, and then that frees you up to play Spencer Steer at second base. The aforementioned Gavin Lux could fill in over there at second base. Sal Stewart plays first base. Suddenly the Reds lineup looks a whole lot more attractive. But I guess we don't care about that in the Queen City. We just want Elly to play where he wants to play, and he gets to play every game doing it with one leg because Cincinnati has it all figured out when it comes to Elly de la Cruz, right? No, they don't. They've been wrong. They continue to be wrong. All that being said, I love the fact that the projection systems show these numbers for these two guys because the season begins and ends with both of them. Mostly with Elly de la Cruz. You're right. The lineup is going to be built around him. What they do is going to be built around him. But if you can put a 3-win Matt McLain back up there in the number 2 spot in this lineup and have Elly hit right behind him, and then whether it's Miguel Andujar or
lineup protection,
right? Yeah. Whoever you put behind Elly at that point is going to have a pretty good season. They're going to get some pitches to hit. So I love that finally something looks like it's coming together a little bit because man, the projections have been rough on the Reds. I mean, how many seasons in a row now have we sat here and said things like FanGraphs clearly hates the Reds because it really felt like that.
Well, and I mean, I will say this, that is the nice fun part of these projections. For the entire outfield, they have projected a 2.9 WAR next year. That's all 3 positions, and knowing that they're probably going to have some kind of a platoon in left field. They put all of that together and they say that the entire outfield is not going to be worth 1 WAR per player. They have Noelvi Marte at 0.1 for his projections next year.
What is Spencer Steer's projection?
Spencer Steer, I don't see specifically, but they project the first base position to be a little bit of Steer, a little bit of Stewart, and it's going to be worth 1.5 WAR. I think he's going to be better than that, but yeah. Without getting too much into the weeds, the point here is that Elly and Matt McLain are 2 of the better spots on this, and it's clear that they need to go get some guys. But I love that they're saying this about both of these guys, and this is where Nick Krall's comments actually have some sort of weight. As much as we belabor the fact that he talked about, or not belabor, but as much as we like hammered him for telling us that he played on one leg, it now at least makes sense for evaluating him next year. What Nick Krall was trying to get us to understand with his comment was, don't believe that the real version of Elly is what we saw in August and September. And I'm fine with that. I have questions as to why that continued to go on, but that is what we talked about yesterday. Moving forward, I understand that's not who he was because he literally was doing it all on one leg. So I think that we will see a huge bounce back compared to what we saw in the final 2 months of the season from him. But the bounce back that they are projecting, and really breakout if you think about it, because Matt McLain hasn't broke out yet. Like, he played not even a full season in his rookie year, missed all 2024, and then played not so great in 2025. So he's not looking for a bounce back. He's looking for a breakout. And that is exactly what Zips is projecting here. And I love to see that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think, I try, Jeff, I try to keep myself reined in and not get overly excited. But when I think about what Elly could be, what he could just truly be with a full healthy season next year. When I think about Matt McLain and tell myself that a lot of his problem last year was really that shoulder wasn't ready. And that shoulders in baseball are very wonky things. And that hopefully he goes into 2026 and it's right. And if those 2 things happen, it is really a different lineup. It is really a different offensive situation than they had. Now, it doesn't fix all the problems. It doesn't solve everything. They still need that power bat. They still need somebody hitting behind Elly de la Cruz that makes the pitcher sweat. But man, these projections
raises this team's floor.
It does. It definitely raises the floor. And just because you hit on it for a second, when you talked about, we talked about the Nick Krall stuff yesterday, I got a real quick shout out some of the everydayers, Jeff, because that episode ended up being a lot of fun for you and I. And I threw some stuff out there and you threw some stuff out there, and the everydayers were undefeated. Graphics were flying around Twitter or Twitter X. And if you're not on those platforms and you didn't see this, we have a follower over on Twitter X, Rico Suave is what his handle is. And he put together a Photoshop of Nick Krall holding up the great value Walmart sneakers. Yeah. And that was amazing. And not to be outdone, the other
Ricky
guy,
Logan. Yeah.
Ricky Logan put together a banner for the Reds to hang out at Great American Ballpark. It's on some cabbage that says Elly played 162. Written in crayon as I requested. So thank you, everydayers. I love you guys. It was amazing. I had several laughs following through the socials yesterday, and I appreciate you all.
I appreciated very much the reaction to that episode because, quite frankly, that content was stressful, but it had to be discussed because it was the things that Nick Krall said just had us asking all kinds of questions. There was a question that we did not answer on yesterday's episode that we will answer next, pertaining to just how much damage he did to his own level of trust with the fan base. Look, the defense for the Bengals is just a train wreck. And quite frankly, they're getting 7 points at home against the Patriots this coming week. I'm not touching the point spread. I'm just not. But you can on over at FanDuel. And if you touch the money line, that's probably what I would look at with this brand new offer for new users. You can place a $5 wager. And if it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Looking at the money line for different things. And honestly, I don't bet against the Bengals, but I probably would advise against betting against the Bengals right now if you're looking at something like that, because man, that defense, they can't stop anything. It's getting bad there. And the Bengals could be an interesting fade over on FanDuel on a weekly basis. So make sure you go check them out. Like I said, new users place a $5 wager, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. Download FanDuel today. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast app because we are free and available everywhere you get your podcast. All right, Steve, one final bit to clean up. I know that, it was a fiery interview, only just for a couple of reasons that Nick Krall gave on Wednesday night for the Reds Hot Stove League show on 700 WLW. But I think that there was an overarching feeling, and we didn't quite get into this on yesterday's episode. But I wonder, because I led off with saying, some days I feel like Nick Krall is making good decisions and leading this team well. And then there are days like Wednesday night where he says some things. I don't necessarily know that I have the utmost confidence in him moving forward based on other things that he was talking about and the way that he approached some subjects. It makes me wonder if not only A, can he go get the players that the Reds need, but B, he can manage the players that they currently have effectively.
The Elly de la Cruz revelation of the torn quad. And by the way, just as we predicted, Nick Krall tried to walk that back. He told your good friend Gordon Whitmire that, I meant to say strain. It's the same thing. A strain is a low grade tear. Thank you very much. It's the same. It's all semantics. Nick Krall tried to walk it back because he was panicking, just like we said. But I want to ask you this, Jeff, because I look at what Nick Krall had to say on the Hot Stove League. I look at how this team is operated, not just through Nick Krall, but with Dick Williams and well before. I came away from it just saying, yeah, this is who they are. And while I was surprised about Elly specifically, this on brand too. Matt McLain's going to be reevaluated. We meant he had surgery. Jesse Winker's shoulder is just fine. It wasn't right for a year and a half. And now look at his health. He's hitting for power. The list goes on and on. That's how this team operates. I'm unfazed by what I think. Do I trust Nick Krall? I trust him to do what Bob and Phil tell him to do. And I trust that he does a pretty good job of doing what Bob and Phil tell him to do. And
in their estimate,
does that mean I trust him to go do this, that, and the other thing? Well, Bob's not going to let him go do this, that, and the other thing. I trust that he's going to work the best he can within the budget he was given. Does that make him a great front office guy, a great baseball exec? Yeah, not really. He struggles with public speaking. He says things he shouldn't say. He frames things poorly, and his message doesn't get communicated well. But that's who he's always been. So my opinion of Nick Krall is unchanged. That's where I land, Jeff. Everything that happened Wednesday night was on brand for this franchise over the last decade.
I think that, and maybe this is just a personal thing that I'm going through, but this entire year, I feel as though my optimism has not been damaged, but it's waned a little bit, if that's fair to say, because look, we go through everything that we've gone through. And like, even I really became a hardcore fan in 1999. And so like, I loved the Reds before that, but I was a kid. So it's not as if I like understood the nuances of the game. And then I really got into the nuances of the game, and I was all in around about 2002. And so I went through the whole 2000s where they didn't do a darn thing. And then you get to 2010 and some fun things happen for a few years. And then they go through another, just, we're not even looking at the playoffs rebuild from 2016 or from 2015, really, all the way up until 2020. And then of course, COVID and all this other stuff. It just feels like there's certain things that I've been able to weather the storm for some reason. My optimism has been able to fight through things, but now it's just been whittled away. These last couple of years, it just feels as though not that I'm pessimistic, but that I'm like a lot more toward the center and being a realist, and maybe not quite on the center, maybe still leaning toward the optimistic side of things. But I think that like some things that we've seen them do, some moves that we've seen them make, just also makes me wonder a little bit, is like, I get it, he does have limitations, but are those limitations so bad that like, and this is the thing that I struggle with. Could you put a Jerry Dipoto, the Seattle president of baseball ops? Could you put a Dave Dombrowski? Could you put a AJ Preller from San Diego? Could you put one of those other guys in this position, and would they do any better? And the hard part for me to answer is I don't even know that they would accept the offer if it was presented to them and they were unemployed at that time.
So it can be done, right? Like, you can build a franchise and not spend $400 million a year to do it. And you have to look no further than the 97 win Milwaukee Brewers to see that it can happen and it can remain consistent. So do I trust Nick Krall? He's got some moves under his belt now as the boss, with nobody else to point a finger at, that make you go, that was bad. That was a bad idea. You and I were talking about Jamer Candelario before we clicked record today. And
thankfully, they only pay him through this year.
you can point at that move and be like, wow, that went bad fast. Will Myers is another one that you look at and you're like, ooh, that didn't work out at all. Now, to the Reds' credit, in both cases, they cut the player, which is something that they wouldn't have done in the past. They wouldn't have done in those bleak 2000 years you're talking about. But Nick Krall really needs a win with one of his reclamation projects. He really needs a win with one of those contracts. And if he doesn't get one of those wins this season, then yeah, when we're talking about him next offseason, I'm going to tell you it's time for the Reds to move on from him, because he clearly can't find the diamonds in the rough based on his budget, which is going to be hard, because I'm convinced that Bob and Phil love Nick Krall because he does exactly what he's been asked to do from a making them money standpoint. So it's going to be a hard conversation, hard to figure out. But Nick Krall absolutely needs a win this offseason, needs to find one diamond to kind of show us that he can.
And look, one of the reasons we do this show is because of the things that I'm about to say. But like, there's times where, I got a nice little fire going in the fire pit, and I got a nice little glass of something tasty, and I'm just pondering different things, and I'm pondering different things that he has said over the years. And the thing that I keep going back to that really concerns me is his whole no peaks and valleys thing. And I know what he was trying to say. I know that he was trying to say that we are going to build sustained success. Number one, I don't know why he didn't just come out and say that. But number two, when you get rid of peaks and valleys, you are a 500 team, because peaks are important. You must sustain those peaks for as long as you can, but knowing that they will not last forever. and understand that the valleys will come, but you need to limit how long that they are there as well. Right now, they are in a peak. Right now, they are in a window. But Nick Krall is the poster child of no such thing as windows. And I really hope that he understands that there still is some validity to the term playoff window. And he doesn't just continue to say no peaks and valleys, no peaks and valleys, no peaks and valleys. Is he going to be like, is AI going to take over Nick Krall and turn him into this robot that just repeats that for the rest of eternity?
I'm going to leave you with this sad note that will probably have your head spinning all day. When Nick Krall said no peaks and valleys, was he trying to tell you he wanted sustained success? Or did he accidentally tell you exactly what he was going to do, which was build 500 ball clubs and hope to sneak into the playoffs? Maybe he told you exactly what he was going to do. And maybe this is just who the Nick Krall strategist is. I'm going to shoot for 82 wins. This team's going to be right at or above 500. And if we stumble our way into 86, 87 wins, cool. Maybe that's how he's building it.
And on that bombshell, it's time to end. Thanks so much, everybody, for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. We will try to be optimistic next week. We said that yesterday. We'll get there. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to be with you every day throughout the offseason, getting you ready for the season to come. Hopefully, a playoff season from some point of view. And we'll be all over that here on Locked On Reds. Now, make sure you check out Locked On MLB. Sully's got you covered around the league wide, and his trademark sense of humor, as well as his historical knowledge. He was there whenever the last time the Reds won the World Series. Some of you might have been too. But he was also there when the Reds won the first World Series too, back in 1919. He can tell you all about it. That's all over on Locked On MLB. Thanks so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds, though. You guys know that as for Steve and myself, we will be Locked On Reds every single day.
Oh, your own joke threw you off. That was funny.
Sometimes.
Sully's going to be pissed. You know, it's too early for you to go drink with that Nick Krall bombshell, by the way. You got to wait.
More coffee.